It's been raining a lot recently, but I have been doing some digital digging into the history of these old ruins. And by far and away the best map that I found, the most detailed kind of aerial plan effectively, is from 1916. You can see the buildings, there's a row of buildings here with a dotted shaded bit. And then below that, this is the road, this band of white. I'll try and overlay some drone footage so you can get a sense of what you're looking at. And as well as the buildings, you can see that the land behind the buildings is separated into these different plots. There are 1, 2, 3 different plots of land coming off different parts of the row of buildings. And there are also these smaller buildings at the back. There are these smaller square ones, which I imagine would have been outbuildings, toilets basically. And then there's this bigger one at the top. There's a slightly longer building. And I think that was more likely an animal shelter of some kind, perhaps a sheepfold, because one of the other historical documents I found described these lands, these pieces of land. It was categorized as pasture land. It was a type of sort of property tax record from the late 1800s. And I think I found a little section of that, a tiny corner of it, buried deep into the bushes and sort of the undergrowth of the sort of far corners of my land. By using the first building as a reference point, the one I've dug out entirely, you can go out of the door of that and then sort of turn left and cut diagonally across the land. People sometimes do ask me how I know I'm in the first building, or the one I dug out is the first building in the row. I mean, one, I did physically dig from the end wall I first dug out in the other direction just to check nothing was there. But also you can use maps like this just to judge the positioning. So for example, there are these buildings on the other side of the road, which are still there. There's a row of an old farmhouse and then some barns, and you can judge the positioning in comparison to that. And also you can see on the other side of the road, there's this triangular parcel of land, and that is still there. So those boundaries are still the same as they were 100 odd years ago. And I can show you actually from where I'm standing right now. And this is the end of the first building. That over there is the corner of the triangle, basically. If I zoom in a little bit, it comes up to a point here on the opposite side of the road. You can't really see the road, but it's sort of down in that gap there. So the triangle, the point of the land comes to over there, and it's just downhill from the end of the ruins. So if there was another building here, even a small one, buried underneath this bit here, for example, it would extend beyond the corner point of that triangle on the other side of the road, and it doesn't on the map. So there's nothing here, basically. So I'm very confident that this is the first building, and the building I'm moving into is the second building in the row. So yeah, if you go out of the doorway of building number 1, which is I'm currently building up, which is why it's covered in hessian and plastic sheeting, try and keep it a little bit dry. So if you go out of that doorway, turn left, and then cut diagonally across the land from this corner, and you go deep into the bushes, past the old sea canoe, and then right in this corner here, along this fence, and buried under thick ivy, it's not easy to make out. There is the corner of some kind of old stone structure, which is certainly, yes, as I say, roughly in the right position to be this. I cannot actually do any more exploring of that because it's not on my land. That's basically the very edge of the boundary. You go along that fence and that's sort of the corner. And it's sort of in between two other people's lands. It's sort of the boundary between two other neighbouring pieces of land, neither of which are owned by me. And I know that a fact that one neighbour at least would not have any interest whatsoever in delving any further into it. In fact, they consistently voice their displeasure of what I do on my own land. They seem to think that I'm secretly building a house here. So it's not really viable to sort of uncover that and do any digging around it. In any event, I've got my hands occupied with the building of the arch and digging of the second building. Although digging currently really is paused, partly because of the weather, partly because I'm busy building the archway. From where I am now with the digging, to make any real progress from where I finished, I need to take out 3 trees. There are 3 small trees which are basically all 3 of them growing out of what would have been the internal of the second building. They're all within the boundaries of the second building. So 2 apple trees, which are quite small, but they're quite well established. I think I planted them about 15 years ago, and they crop really well. They're currently really heavily laden with apples. And then the third one is an oak tree, which is self-seeded in the bushes there. And it's now quite big. It's about 12 foot tall, maybe. But I would prefer to try and transfer those and keep them alive and move them somewhere, which really means I need to wait for them to shed their leaves and be dormant in the winter, because otherwise they've got no chance of survival. And I think, given their size and how well established they are, it's probably quite unlikely they'll survive anyway. I'm not that confident, and I expect people in the comments will say the same thing, that I'm wasting my time, but I do think there's a chance they might survive. So I'm going to try and save as much of the root structure as I can, dig around them, as I say, when they've shed their leaves, and obviously then dig big holes elsewhere on my land, bed them in, you know, stake them out, and just hope for the best and see if they survive. Especially the fruit trees, they're the best fruit trees I have, the best apple trees. They crop really well and they're really nice apples. So until I've done that, I'm limited in the extent to which I can dig into the second building. But yeah, I have found some other maps and historical documents, as I say, some sort of property tax records from 100+ years ago, which I'm going to share. I have been editing a fuller video about the history of the ruins, you know, doing my investigation. But yeah, I've got some more maps stretching back another 100 years, or they sort of diminish in quality really. As you go back through the 1800s, they get worse and worse and worse, and then into the 1700s, I can't find any which show individual level, you know, show individual buildings. They don't go to that scale. They tend to show, you know, villages and towns. So they're not really that useful in terms of the building. I have also found some information about who used to live there and who was the owner of the land around 130, 40 years ago, which I will put into that video. Anyway, there will be more videos coming soon. I just wanted to give an update. I was ill for the last couple of weeks, which is why there hasn't been any videos. Nothing serious, just a stinking cold, but yeah. So it's all coming along, and should be more videos coming over September.